This letter. All right, I will call the meeting to order. First order of business is the minutes from last meeting.
I have nothing.
Nothing.
Okay,
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of Monday, October 24th as presented.
I'll second that motion.
all those in favor? Aye.
I now make a motion to approve the public meeting minutes of the 24th.
Second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, Ray's not online yet, right?
Doesn't appear to be.
No. Oh, that's me. All right, I couldn't tell by that screen. Then we'll just follow the agenda. I was gonna skip to Ray, but he's not here. Next thing is a public hearing on acceptance of gifts. What's that?
Right here,
He is here.
he just now.
Let's do
That-
this.
Yeah, okay. All right, acceptance, yeah, maybe it will be, but. Pursuant to RSA 3195E, prior to the acceptance of any such gift with a value of $5,000 or more, the selectmen or board of commissioners shall hold a public hearing on the proposed acceptance. The Lincoln Police Department has been offered 10 Pelican rifle cases and 10 handgun cases, along with 12 utility flashlights from the company Pelican, right?
A property owner in town who is the CEO for Pelican.
Okay. Which are just the cases that would hold our rifles, handguns, and flashlights.
With an approximate value of $5,600.
Okay. So we're required by that RSA to hold a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing. Are any comments or questions on the acceptance of those as gifts? There being none, I'll close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to approve the acceptance of the donated gifts.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. You want to do the other one real quick?
Yeah, might as well.
I'm assuming it'll take about the same time.
Yeah.
We need to have two public hearings for an electric aggregation plan pursuant to RSA 53-E:6V. The committee shall solicit public input in the planning process and shall hold public hearings. This is the first of two public hearings. The second hearing will be November 28th, 2022. The community choice aggregation plan was accepted 2019. But then it went sort of into limbo while the state figured out some new guidelines.
Yeah.
I'm sure there were laws, but guidelines for this. So there was some minor changes to our contract with them, and we need to have two public hearings before this board can accept the new contract to replace the old one. It's online. I'm sure everybody read it because it's fascinating. Does anyone have any? Oh, wait, I'll open the public hearing. For that, any comments or questions? Yes,
Question, was there a committee set up within the town? And who was on that committee?
Yes,
you were.
yeah.
Deb O'Connor, Dirk Malling,
Yeah,
who's no longer with us. As in, he's passed
Okay.
away this year. I didn't know about it until a couple of days ago, so I emailed him. Deb O'Connor, Tammy, Ron Beard,
Okay.
Malling, it was a small committee, that was it.
yeah, there weren't a whole lot of us, but. Yeah, we met with, oh, what was his name?
Gilbert.
Gilbert, thank you.
Brown.
Yeah, Gilbert Brown. 4 times, maybe 3 or 4 times. Yeah, and then it went to town meeting and
Yeah, so we voted on this at town meeting.
correct
We accepted it. We're just amending
The plan.
the plan to coincide with state regulations. Yeah.
All right, there being none, we'll close the public hearing. And we can't vote on this because we have to have a second one, which you're doing on November 28th.
Correct.
All right, so now we'll move on to a Riverfront Park update. And I guess Ray will turn it over to you.
Well, good evening, everyone. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, so, yeah, we'd like to just give a quick update on the Riverfront Park project. Real briefly, this past week, last week, we completed the field work for the geotechnical investigations, specifically on the parking lot and some of the other amenities, areas and where some of the other amenities are going to be occurring. We also did some sampling in the what's identified as a wetland area. It's the former sludge disposal area for the wastewater treatment plant from the old mill. And we also collected groundwater samples. All that work was done by Novus under their contract that you had executed back in, I think it was early October 7th to be precise. And so the field work is completed, and they'll be looking at the data over the coming weeks and issuing a report both on the geotechnical investigation and also the environmental site assessment work. And again, just as per our meeting last time, this work was necessary, at least on the environmental side, to fill in the data gaps that the EPA and DES were looking for. That came out of the targeted brownfields assessment work that was done under the EPA grant that the town had received. So this is follow-on work from an environmental standpoint. And in the geotechnical investigations were necessary because the parking lot, the proposed location of the parking lot is basically sitting on what we now know is an urban fill area. A lot of solid waste material was discovered when we did our initial investigations. It's got to be going on 2 years now. So that work was done to confirm the existing conditions, so we can get a better idea as to what it's going to take in order to get a parking lot in that location. They don't have a firm date yet from Novus because they just completed their field work on Friday, but we've been coordinating with them early this week to get a firm date as to when they're going to be issuing their respective reports on the geotechnical investigations and the environmental site assessment work. That's the current status. Any questions on that?
No, thank
No.
you.
Okay, so going forward, the next step would be to coordinate with the respective agencies at DES, and there's really 3 agencies that we're dealing with. Obviously, waste management is involved from an environmental site assessment standpoint. We also need to secure an alteration of terrain permit, and wetlands is involved because of the wetlands area where that sludge disposal was had occurred. So we've got those 3 agencies that we need to coordinate with and get on the same, basically build consensus around what the remediation effort is going to be in order to mitigate public health and safety issues associated with the contamination on site. But we also have to coordinate with wetlands as far as the sludge removal is concerned, and the impacts to the wetland area and what the restoration requirements going to be. And then obviously we have to deal with alteration of terrain, particularly as it relates to the stormwater mitigation that has to happen on site. And that is actually the bigger challenge because based on the test pitting that we've done, we've gotten some preliminary results back from Novus. Some of the areas where we were hoping to put infiltration practices, we have high groundwater. The areas where we don't have high groundwater, we have urban fill, solid waste material. So that's the challenge that we're going to be faced with in order to get everybody to concur on a solution for stormwater mitigation. DES won't allow us to mitigate through obviously a contaminated soil column, because that can obviously exacerbate any groundwater contamination going forward. So, so the challenge is just to get the regulatory concurrence on the final solution for the parks design.
Just to confirm, Ray, or clarify, the report that we'll receive from Novus will be prior to any coordination with state agencies, because I think that's kind of going to dictate, I guess, the level or the scale of the remediation project that needs to take place. Is that correct?
Yes and no. I mean, honestly, we've had some, we have a pretty good idea where this thing is gonna go. So we've had some conversations with the folks down at Waste Management and also alteration of terrain, just to brainstorm on what possible solutions they could get behind. So we've done some of that legwork. And again, these are just telephone conversations that we've had with them, because we want to understand what's the viability of, actually putting the park in, what is it actually going to take. So the sooner we have that information, the sooner we have that feedback, certainly the better. So we don't want to spend a lot of money on site assessment work if we don't think there's a viable option out there. So we've done some preliminary legwork in order to have those conversations with DES. Nothing is finalized with the three regulatory agencies that we're dealing with directly. Eventually, we're going to have to bring them to the table collectively and lay out to them what we think the solutions might be, and we have to work on developing what those solutions look like, because they're going to want to see some level of detail so that they can understand what they can ultimately sign off on. Did I answer your question, Karina?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Yeah, Roger.
if you ask him about the wells that were already there, that the state put in years ago, there were probably 6 wells dug in the ground with locks on them. Are they still there on the ground? On that same area?
Ray, did you hear the question?
Yeah, I heard the question. I don't have the details on the inventory of the existing wells and which wells were used for groundwater sampling. But we are going to be drilling additional wells. I think there's 4 wells that are proposed in the scope of work for Novus to do additional groundwater sampling. Again, that's required to fill in those data gaps that we've talked about in the past.
Wouldn't those wells be good to they had them in 15 years ago? Can't they use those wells now against what they're getting now? I mean, there's more than 4 wells down there, because there's wells that go all the way down to the incinerator.
All I can say is that, Novus, I believe Novus has done their homework to identify the location of the existing groundwater monitoring wells. And they've made their determination as to whether, they can use them as far as the data collection effort is concerned.
State put them in, I mean, they ought to have some kind of history with it.
I did not hear. Was there a question there?
They were installed by the state
Yep.
20 years ago. It seemed like there ought to be a little track record on that and see what the ground has changed, the water has changed since then, or what.
Ray, were those included in in one of the previous reports? In that what they determined was that there's like, as you said, data gaps, there's places where they suspect or have there's been an indication of some contamination and they need to drill and sample that further. Is that kind of what this next sampling process is about?
Yeah, so basically what the issue they want to look into, because we had some hits on like down at the downgrading the recycling facility, we got a hit on cadmium, we got also some hits on lead. So the DES wants basically they want a little more detail around whether or not there is groundwater contamination that has to be addressed, specifically as it relates to lead, because my understanding is that there was waste material that was actually buried below the Burndy site. That is an area of concern for DES. That material is probably 15-20 feet down below the existing grade underneath the Burnfield landfill site. So they want more information as to whether or not there's contamination coming from that particular source. And that was again pre-Burndy disposal at that location, at that property. So they want more detail to determine if there's any, impact to the groundwater. That's why the additional groundwater monitoring wells are going in.
Well, so all that was is white water, water with clay and fiber. There was no, I don't think you could say there's any chemicals in it besides clay.
Yeah, good, Jack.
Ray, even Roger, what was the purpose of the state drilling those wells 20+ years ago? Was there a plan back then to do something?
But yeah, I would assume that the wells that are being referenced here were the monitoring wells that went in relative to the Burndy site when they did the closure on the Burndy site. That's probably what those wells were for. Because the Burndy landfill was actually closed, I believe it was back in wasn't it late 90s?
Yeah.
Yeah, but those wells, I think you look ready to put in. Years ago, there was a big ash dump there for all the coal ash in the mill. Right across where the Burndy thing, but there was a pit there about 30 feet deep. And all the cinders were in there from the boilers. Was there ever?
Well, there's several wells on the property. Some couldn't be used because they were compromised. Some, I believe Novus was able to use others. So which ones they used on the existing and which ones they didn't, I don't know. I couldn't specifically tell you. We can find out if you really want to know.
I think it'd be worth your while, because I think you put water with coal ashes and see what you get.
So Ray, going forward, you said they need to drill 4 more wells for part of their investigation?
Yep.
And then from there, they have to do more whatever analysis of what comes out of that or what happens in there.
Yep.
Is that before a solution can be developed?
No, essentially the environmental work that's being done, again, it's to fill in the data gaps that we have, or that EPA and DES, need to be filled. So, in terms of developing a solution, we have a pretty good idea of what's going to be required in order to get the park in. Again, those ideas need to be, formulated in more detail, and they need to be presented to DES. But the environmental work is, again, unless something comes up with the additional investigation, we have a pretty good handle as to, what the outcome is going to be. We may find when we do additional groundwater sampling that, we get more lead hits and we get more, contaminants of concern that are identified. There's no guarantee that that's not going to happen. And if it does happen, then we're going to have to, navigate through waste management to address those issues. But you keep in mind that even if we come up with some additional groundwater contamination, we're not going to use the groundwater to, supply for water supply for the park. We're going to be tying into the municipal system. So there's nothing there in my estimation that would preclude you from moving forward with the park. It's just a matter of, obviously, the state would want to maybe have a groundwater management permit for the site. So that you can monitor the groundwater and level of contamination going forward. Just much like what you have for the wastewater treatment plant.
All right, any other questions?
Go ahead. Quick question, from Friday's additional test pitting, or Thursday and Friday's additional test pitting of last week. I know that our employees were the ones doing the test pitting for them, and there were areas in which had 20 feet or so deep of debris. Is that any cause for concern, or was that anticipated, or was that, I guess, predictable, or all of the above?
Sorry, Karina, you were breaking up there in the middle of your question. Could you repeat that, please?
Sure, I just said that, I know that on Friday that we found some additional pits that had, 20+ feet of some, debris, landfill material. And I guess my question just was that anticipated? Is this a cause for concern? Is this gonna add additional remediation, or was this, I guess, to be expected?
Well, as far as the depth, I mean, we weren't sure how deep that solid waste material went. So initially, when we first came across, it was, again, I think it was 2020. We did test pitting for an alteration of terrain permit for the infiltration practice that we were proposing when we had completed the preliminary design at that time. And that's when we discovered that we have some solid waste material there. We had some issues, and that's when everything went on hold. We went to the alternatives analysis to relocate the parking lot, if you remember all of that. And then ultimately we wound up at doing additional site assessment work under the TBA. So we knew that there was probably at least 4 to 5 feet of fill material there. This latest round of test pits has indicated there's, in some areas there's, 14 feet plus. So whether it's 20 feet or, 25 feet or 15 feet, there's quite a bit of material, and it's really concentrated in the area where the parking lot is proposed to go. And that's why we thought it would be important to get a geotechnical investigation done at the parking lot, because we have to make sure that at the end of the day, the parking lot's going to stand the test of time. We have to understand how deep that waste material is, how stable or unstable it is, and we have to figure out a solution, geotechnical solution around stabilizing that whole area before we put the parking lot in. So was it expected? Yeah, it was, to some degree it was expected, but specifically whether it was 4, 5, 6, 8, 20 feet deep, we weren't quite sure until we did this round of test pitting. And essentially that's why we did the test pitting we did.
So Ray, would that be the theory going forward, that we would utilize the worst spots for parking so that we could encapsulate them and pave over?
Yeah, so what I envision probably will happen, I don't want to get over my skis here too far, but I think probably what's going to happen for the parking lot area is we're going to excavate a certain amount of that material out of there until we get to a subgrade elevation that we're comfortable with. And then we're going to have to bring in fill in order to backfill against that, in order to, ensure that we have a solid footprint to put the parking lot on. Because again, we don't want that parking lot creeping over time and settling over time. We want to make sure that it's, that it's going to stand the test of time. So I need to have a conversation with Novus, their geotechnical engineer, get his take on it, what he thinks, can and can't be done. But at the end of the day, I think we're excavating quite a bit of that material before we backfill and put in the parking lot.
And is that still the I guess most cost-effective way to put in a place to put in the parking lot, is on top of that soft waste rather than the Burndy site?
We don't know yet. Again, I'd like to hear back from the geotechnical investigation and see where we stand. I mean, again, what we're going to have to do is evaluate the two locations, do a cost breakdown at each of those locations, and figure out which is the most cost-effective location to put the parking lot. But it's premature at this point to make an assessment as to what those costs are going to be. That would be part of the preliminary design effort going forward.
Okay. All right, and then looking at the work that needs to be done, the DES, the 3 divisions of the DES that need to be involved in this. How does you gave us a timeline back on September 24th? Is that still in effect, or are we looking at making that briefer or longer?
Yeah, I would have to go back and look specifically at that timeline. I don't have it in front of me here, but overall, I think it's still, it's a timeline that, if you remember from our last meeting, you know, it was a timeline that we kind of thought was a best case scenario. So we're still going to try to get that, you know, meet that schedule if we can. And then it's going to be driven by the regulatory response to whatever information we put in front of them. So, you know, again, that's a big reason why I'm very engaged with each of those agencies about, you know, what the solutions might be, because we're trying to expedite the, you know, expedite the conversation, because that's really the critical path here, is getting consensus on what the solution might look like. Because we don't want to, and DES is going to need some level of design effort in order to make those determinations. So we're trying to minimize what that effort is before we get that consensus, because we want to understand, you know, at the end of the day, we want to understand how much this is going to cost the town.
Okay,
So OJ, to answer your question, we're going to hold to that timeline as certainly as best we can.
okay, I guess I was hoping that it could be compressed, I mean, the skateboard park group is gonna lose a $50,000 grant. If we are unable to, you know, shorten this timeframe, this construction.
Right.
I mean, you don't, I mean, this has the AOT permit not even being completed in mid-July. And I'm just thinking, if that's the next step, is it, you know, that's just a long time.
Yeah, it's, well, the AOT permit, they have 75, I believe it's 75 days to do their review. So that's kind of the, getting the permits and applications in front of the agencies as quickly as possible is really, you know, important, so that we can start that clock on their review time.
I guess my concern is a few steps back, is submitting the AOT permit is going to require that we have some funding to remediate for them to then construct the actual skate park. And at current status, we have $20,000 in a capital reserve account and a grant for $200,000 for the access point. So I guess my concern is that, I guess the board and collectively needs to make a decision myself of how we're going to fund this moving forward. Because even if we do apply for a Brownsfield remediation grant, it's not guaranteed that we're going to have funds in hand by next July to actually do the work and start construction. So I guess that's where my concern is right now is the funding portion of what's going to need to happen, even before we get to the AOT. Because I imagine this is a multi-million-dollar project, is just a guess. Ray shaking his head, so.
Yeah,
That's
I think it's been a while since I looked at the cost estimate, years actually. I think the cost estimate, as I recall, was like 1.3 million, and that was before a lot of the additional work that we're looking at as a result from the contamination issues.
The 1.3 was a max. If we had every bell and whistle we wanted, that's what it would be. Yeah, remediation is going to add to that, but maybe we take out some of the bells and whistles.
Yeah, and yeah, that's a great point, Tammy. I think, you know, I mean, because we just finished up a park project, and the town decided to phase it out over time because they had budgetary constraints. So we basically built the infrastructure in the park. We put in the rain gardens, built a, you know, trail network, et cetera, et cetera. And over time, they're gonna put in the amenities: volleyball court, playground, pavilion building. So they're going to just build it out over a 2, 3, 4 year period. So you can do that. You can take that approach here, put in the parking lot, give access to the site to put in the skate park and then, build it out over time as funding allows.
But the remediation of the contamination would need to be done.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we would recommend that, again, you need to have, it's our opinion, you need to have a clean bill of health on that site before anybody would even probably entertain even using it. So.
The requirements of the grant, Tara, I know river access was one. Park access was another. What else has to be done with that 200,000?
It's basically like, again, a phased part, but we'll perform site work for site work for construction of a skate park, parking lot, walkways, bike pedestrian pathway. So it provides like access to all of these future amenities that would be put in. Perform site work for a restroom / storage facility and then playground.
So site work for
Site work
all of
for
those things
Future things.
and river
So,
access.
right,
The river access was completion, not.
and it's not like paved or. even
Right,
stone, it's
path
just
with a place to turn a car around. Yeah. So, okay, now there's the magic question. How much is it gonna cost to remediate? That's what we need to find out, and then we'll know if we have any money or not. I mean, if you're talking 30,000 to remediate, well, again, let's do it tomorrow. If you're talking, 3 million to remediate, well, we need to do some thinking. And is there any way to find out where between 3,000 and 3 million that sits? I mean, seriously.
Yeah, and again, that's what, that's really, you're still in the preliminary design phase. So we have pretty much wrapped up the preliminary design back in April of 2020. And then in May, we did the test pitting, we found, we have some contamination issues that need to be addressed, and here we are. So it's really taken that the design we've completed to date, which is we're still pursuing, which is reflective of the concept that was approved by the board and the recreation committee at the time. So we still think that's worth getting regulatory compliance, getting that option, getting approval from the regulatory agencies for that option, and move forward with that design concept. But again, before we need to do some design development in order to answer the question, how much is it going to cost? Because right now we don't know. And how much is it's going to cost is going to be dependent upon what the regulatory authorities say must be done from a remediation and mitigation standpoint. So when we get that consensus, we'll have a clear picture as to where we're going with this thing and what the design needs to be in order to get the park in.
Will there be enough clarity in the conversations with the DES agencies to at least get a ballpark idea on cost for this budget season? Which, say at least at some point in January?
Yeah, we were aware that we needed to, get to there as soon as at least have some idea as to where the cost was going to come down sooner rather than later. That's why we've already engaged with the regulatory agencies on possible solutions. So we've developed those in-house. We haven't done a lot of detail around it, but we have taken a look at different options already. I haven't put anything down on paper. This is again just some brainstorming we've been doing in-house, and we put some ideas out there, and we might have some ideas that will actually work. So, but we need to, now that we've got the field work on the environmental and geotechnical done, we're going to have a better idea in the weeks ahead about what we're dealing with, and then we can talk with more clarity with the regulatory agencies about what we're dealing with and what we need to do in order to mitigate. So if you give us a date as to when you need to have a cost estimate done, we will do our best to give you our best guess as to what that estimate is based on the available information we were able to develop to that point.
January 18th. That's when Tara comes to us for her, with her budget. Well, to the budget committee with her budget on January 18th.
January 18th.
Well, I think this board needs to at least see and discuss.
Right, right.
Before that.
Oh, yeah, no, we're just gonna do that. I mean, regardless of what it costs or what it doesn't cost, we gotta clean it up. Whether we put a park there or don't put a park there, or put a fence around it or whatever.
Yeah, but the timeline to that.
Right.
Can vary. There's a lot to
Disagree.
discuss. It's not gonna be a quick conversation, I guarantee you. But can we say mid-January?
Yeah, we can, and we can definitely shoot for mid-January. I mean, I'd like to, confer with my colleagues at Novus, because they need to get us information in order for us to do our thing. So let me talk with them, see when they're scheduled to get us, their data, their summaries, and then, but again, we think we have a pretty clear picture of, what we're dealing with. So I suspect I can have those conversations pretty quickly.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you. Did you have anything? Anyone?
Kevin? Carol?
I was thinking earlier than that would be better, but I'm good.
Earlier than that? Well, yeah, I mean. Ideally, the first week of January would be great, but I don't know how realistic that would be to.
Well. I mean, obviously, if you have an idea earlier than that, that'd be better, but let's touch bases sometime in January and see what.
Well, I'll touch base with Karina. Karina will be in discussion, and I'll give you a date when, we think we can have the cost estimate developed, and, we'll have a conversation around what it would take in order us to get there, because again, we have to do some preliminary design in order to make that happen. So, we've got a design. Again, I'll just share some of the ideas that we have. With one idea that we have is actually elevating that site as much as 5 feet. So we excavate the material out that we discovered this past week. We know it's 10 to 15 feet of depth of material in certain places. Then all of that, our hope is that all of that doesn't have to come out. That we can excavate to a certain subgrade. We can make some assumptions around that. And then if Novus tells me, how much material we need to bring in, clean fill in order to get, good subgrade for the parking lot, we can start putting some ballpark estimates together. I can't tell you it's going to be, like a final design estimate, but we'll definitely give you an order of magnitude estimate. I think we can come up with that within your timeline.
Okay.
But I'll communicate with Karina as we go along here, and again, we'll get that information to you as soon as we possibly can.
That sounds good. We appreciate the update, Greg.
Okay, all right, great. I don't know, I see that Nate is on here. I don't know, Nate, if Nate wanted to weigh in on what he saw out in the field, that might.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess the only comment I wanted to make was obviously Ray touched on that contaminated soil was really deep in some spots that we found. My concern is that we may be excavating out, thousands of yards of material. That can be expensive. Otherwise, if you want to continue to do test pits, it may be advantageous to look at the next step for the site, which I think would be to get some timber harvesting done so that we can get in there and keep doing this, because it's getting difficult to get around in there with even a mini excavator to keep doing test pits. That's just my suggestion, and it would make it easier for us if you want to continue to have us help you with doing test pits. So what are your thoughts?
Okay, No, thanks, Nate. I'll certainly confer with Novus. I mean, we put together a test pit program that we felt was pretty comprehensive for what we needed to do from a design standpoint. So I'm certainly not anticipating any more, exploratory excavations out there. So, but if the Novus's geotechnical engineer comes back and, says he wants more, we'll certainly let you know.
Okay, no, that's all good. The only thing, another consideration is, I walked the site for a long time for the past Thursday and Friday. And I saw the same kind of, elevation differences and, topographical differences like we saw where we're putting the parking lot, which was obvious that was fill conditions. I see that same scenario going on right through all the way down towards the river. So I guess my concern is that I don't think that the contamination or the landfill type material is consolidate, just in that one area. I think it may be most of the site. And that's the only thing I wanted to throw out there is no test pits have been done beyond that wetland area down towards the river. And I was concerned that we keep going, what we might find down that way.
Yeah, we do. I can report that on the test pits that were done down by the proposed playground area, Nate. They really didn't come up with, according to their log here, there was no real fill encountered down there. So it looks like it pretty much is tucked up into that northeast section of the site along the utility easement. So that looks like where a lot of that material was placed. Now, does that mean that there isn't anything anywhere else on site? No, but again, you got to weigh the probability of finding something in the floodplain area is probably pretty low. Doesn't mean that there isn't anything there, but it would be awful expensive to go do site assessment work on that whole 20 acres. You really got to evaluate where your dollars are best spent.
Oh, I understand. I'm just in my logical thinking of looking at, the landscape. I see like building materials all the way down towards the river and, chunks of building of brick and whatnot.
Yeah.
Above the ground. So one leads me to believe it might be below the ground as well.
It might be more underneath.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, that's a good observation. Thank you.
I guess that's all I have.
Thanks, Nate.
All right, thanks, Nate. All right, and we're good with Ray?
That it?
I believe so. Thank you very much for the update.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
All right, good night.
All right, have a good evening.
I think, he's off, but it doesn't make a difference. I think it'd be important if we could get, bi-weekly, just a sentence or two about what's happening, X, Y, Z has happened. The next step, so that we're kept abreast and we can keep the town abreast of exactly what's happening and the stage we're at different levels along the process.
Yeah,
People don't expect to be finished here and it's way out here.
I think that's easy enough to do. I meet with Ray pretty often.
And Dave had a good point too. We gotta cut trees, and if we're hoping to get any kind of construction done this summer, we should cut trees this winter
Yeah, Nate and I have previously
prior
talked
to
about
the
that.
spring
and,
melt. Yeah.
Maybe bringing a logger in and on to.
This winter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I had indicated that young Mike Donahue contacted me and said he'd be willing to
yeah.
take the firewood and cut, so.
I mean, and it's not a huge piece of land. We're not
No.
talking giant timber. I think that's a fantastic
And
idea.
we're not talking about the full 20 acres either.
No, it's just areas of it.
Someone
correct.
who went and delineate the trees.
Yeah, we don't want to clear.
Clear
For
cut.
sure.
Create a buffer.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's
Something
something.
to look into if the board is interested in.
I think that's a good idea. I think that it would, I like Nate's idea that, in case they come back, who knows what wetlands is gonna say, they might say, well, we gotta dig a hole here now. Well, let's get those trees down and just be ready for whatever.
And if
Yes,
they
and they
come,
can
they
come
come
down
back
anyway.
and say, everything's fantastic, we can start construction in April, then let's have the trees down prior to that. That's where I'm at. So,
Yeah, I mean, I can start that process if
yeah,
the
I think we
board
should.
is.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we don't wanna clear cut everything, the whole place.
Right, no, right,
But strategically,
no, I
we
can
know a
work,
lot's gonna have to come down, let's start on that.
I can work with Nate and maybe potentially Ray and see, what areas they think maybe we should concentrate on first and go
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah. So going back to the skate park aspect of this. This construction schedule is not gonna meet your. Requirement for. An opening.
It's terrible.
I know. I'm glad that they're moving ahead with. DES now rather than wait for every last detail to come in and then start anew. I mean, he obviously has some idea of what needs to be dealt with. But even with that. It doesn't look promising to have this ready for next, you need this done by next October, September?
September.
Next fall.
Next fall. I don't know what else to say. I mean,
No, and going back to my previous comment, I mean, I know Ray's gonna get us a more cost, a cost estimate moving forward, but if he comes forward and says it's gonna be $1 million,
Yeah,
that's gonna be a hard sell at town meeting in March. And I, there are grant opportunities, but we all know when you're working with either federal dollars or state dollars, whatever it is, nothing moves
not
fast.
fast, right?
And you gotta jump through a lot of hoops to get that free money. There's a lot of, administrative work behind there to get that money. Northern Borders is coming up in February, I know that, and I know we received $1 million from them before for the water tank. That's a potential to look into, but we also have Riverfront Park, the police fire building, the water main on Route 3. We also have a bunch of other projects that are still kind of up in the air right now, and I think we maybe need to prioritize them. If we are gonna go for some of this grant funding, what projects we're gonna focus on and where our priority lies.
And I mean, the other, to the point where the brownfields called and said, because we're not at substantial enough completion.
Right.
Like, we're not far enough into the project to get the funding.
Right.
Is that gonna hold up other grants as well, that they wanna see that we've at least started something, but it's hard to get there until we know what we're.
Right, well, and when we're working with the Brownsfield, we know from this first assessment portion of it, we're on their timeline, not ours.
Right.
And I mean, the thing that's killing me is that, when did we sign this MOU? When did we go to the voters and say, we're building this? We need money, and they went, yeah. I mean, it was overwhelming vote.
That was
To
September
match-
2nd, 2015.
Yeah, I mean,
7, 8 years.
that was, the MOU was signed then?
Yeah.
So we went to the voters the following March. So I mean, we've been telling our townspeople and our voters and the people that have been going to these fundraisers for 8 years, we're gonna build this. And now we're going, well, maybe not, maybe we ought to prioritize. I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with telling the voters, we're gonna do this. This is happening. Yes, it's happening. And then we need to make it happen. We just need to make it happen.
well, again, it's gonna be the voters who decide that,
Yes, absolutely, like they have,
right?
yes. No question. Yeah, we need water meters. So there.
Again, put that in perspective of mediating a site. and putting a water main up Route 3 and building a new community building. Now you wanna add water meters, there's another 1.8, called $2 million. You know,
Regardless of what we do and don't do, we need to remediate the site. We know we own unsafe, unhealthy land. We need to do something, even if it's put a fence around it and shut it down forever. We can't just not do it. We can't just not do anything. That's not an option. I mean,
well, I don't know,
you can't. We know, the town knows there's a problem, but you're just gonna not do anything?
well, I think the first thing we do is find out what the options are.
Right,
And.
Which is what we're
the
doing.
Mitigation is, you know, again, I still question why the parking lot isn't over the part that's already been remediated, it's already solid, it's already filled. You can almost go up there and,
well, isn't that what he was saying? Wasn't that where they found the deepest solid waste was under the Burndy landfill?
no, it's down below the Burndy landfill.
Oh,
It's in
under,
the valley,
oh,
yeah.
okay,
Under
okay.
is in lower, as in down,
Okay.
downhill towards the river.
Okay.
Um,
That makes more sense.
right,
yeah.
which, again, it's squishy land. And that's why a lot of
So they
these.
build homes on top of landfills. Look at the Lodge Liga station.
Well, I know.
That's, I mean, it seriously, that was the town dump and people live there. I mean, it's not like it can't be done safely. I don't
Right,
see
but
people
one of
up
the,
and
one of the
down.
things we're building is a big pile of dirt,
Right,
okay? I would say put the pile of dirt over the
agreed,
squishy land,
agreed,
put the parking lot over the hard packed surface.
agreed.
I mean, just logically, it seems like that would be more cost
Well,
effective.
and I think and Tara, I think you and I had spoke about this in one of our most recent correspondence with Ray and Novus, is that DES is now saying that further remediation needs to be done on the Burndy site, that even though they had certified it as remediated.
So are they
clean-
paying for it since they said it was fine and now they're saying it's not?
No, I mean, that's not the way the state works, but I
course
think
it's
that
not.
additional work needs to be done to the Burndy site. To actually have it be habitable, I guess, or to be able to be.
Isn't that where we're putting the big pile of dirt?
Yeah, the earthen mound.
Yeah.
That's the
Yes.
mound now, yeah.
Right.
But we have had two plans over the years, one that had the parking lot on that Burndy site and one that had it at the original site, right
Right.
off of the Playhouse site.
And they keep coming back to the original site.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Cause we got as far as like rounded edges so that Nate could plow it.
Right.
We got pretty far into the development of where it was gonna be.
so we're back at the hurry up and wait stage again.
Yes, unfortunately. Well, and that's why I want to bring Ray in, to have this conversation, so we
Right.
all have our expectations on the same field, I guess, on the same playing field.
Well, hopefully you can come back in first week of January and say it's gonna be the 3,000, not 3 million. You know, well, I mean,
Talk about digging dirt,
yes.
14 feet deep. That's.
yeah, but I don't, if there's. That's like saying that when they built Lincoln Station, they took every bit of trash out of there ever and filled it up in.
Yeah, but
It
I'm
was
sure the
capped off and built
standards, I'm sure the standards when they built Lincoln Station is much different than in 2023 of what needs to happen to make the site.
In
clean.
Virginia Beach is a giant skate park called Mount Trashmore. On top of the old landfill. It's fantastic. I've been there. It's a great park.
Yep.
Truly a great park. It's not like it can't be done.
Yeah, with Lincoln Station, unless I'm completely wrong. There was a bunch of piling driven. And that piling is within the concrete slab of the floor.
That makes
That's
sense.
what's holding that building. It's not setting directly on
That makes sense.
the fill that was there. And you can't do that down there. I mean, if you wanted to drive piling and have a slab of concrete and then build from there, yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
But there's, I don't know how much piling was driven to Lincoln Station
Yeah,
down through all that stuff
sure.
till it hit solid ground.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
It
Roger,
wasn't just built on top, it's there.
Isn't there any way that town can get the reams off those sample holes they dug down in? They didn't dig them, they drilled them. So they're gonna be a lot farther than these guys are digging. Cause I've been down in there when we dug before, and it just put it one hole or another hole, everybody just throwing things around over there. If you get how many wells they had over there, and there's more than 4, I tell you.
I believe there was 9.
And
The-
cause they go all the way from the bank, they go all the way down, around and around where the dump is.
Right.
Around there.
DES has those numbers,
They all had,
right?
they all had a registered number for the state with a passport.
Novus had that on their 2017 report, or the new.
It's the new one.
Yeah,
that
the new
we-
one, right. Have those been located and they're on the report?
How deep are they?
I don't know.
We just have the readings off.
We're, whatever ones were still, whatever,
Active,
readable,
yeah.
readable. I believe are on that report, you know, and again, measuring lead and cadmium and all these other things.
Well, yeah, cause if you got an ash dump up ahead of you, there's ashes, there's 60 feet of ashes over there. And there's railroad cars dumped in there, buried, you know? It's just a steel dump and all that stuff is high and it's going down towards the river. And the soft spot they're talking about, that's just stock. I wouldn't be afraid, I mean, if it's so bad, why is all those trees growing down there? You know?
So in the next 60 days between now and January
Mid-January,
15th.
yeah.
Novus is going to drill 4 wells. Is that what's happening?
Correct.
And then those, and then waiting for the results of those. After digging, results of what's found in those wells. And then Ray and Novus will work on a mitigation solution. And come up with a estimate to the town. Is
Correct.
that?
I
Yes.
understood that it was saying that they're going to work on the estimate while they're waiting for the results.
Yeah.
Yes,
yes.
It's gonna change what we anticipate, but.
Which
So-
I agree with. I mean, they're not expecting any surprises from the other 4 new wells or the test pits that were dug by Nate last week.
So these 4 new wells. These were not originally, I say originally planned for. This is a kind of a new revelation that or new step that needs to be done, right? Because initially, I don't know, not initially, a couple months ago, we were talking. The town was going to dig these additional test pits to fill in the data gaps, but based on those findings. Novus is now recommending these wells.
I think DES is.
Yeah. Because he could answer that.
Yeah, I believe that OJ is correct, that DES is requiring
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
Are these the ones that they couldn't get in because of the trees and stuff that are in the way, or is this in addition to after that?
I think it's as a result of that one spot being hit with the cadmium or however you pronounce it. I think they wanted additional testing in that area because they only had one well kind of out on its own there that was testing positive.
But that's what they just went in to do this past 2 days.
No,
No.
Nate's been doing test pits that were 16 individual test pits
Right.
that aren't that aren't well water. They're not
Okay,
well
okay.
water.
So that's. But
This
it's
is
still
just
the
soil
same-
sample.
It's still the same ones that Tim talked about when he was here, that this haven't been done yet. The wells haven't been drilled, the pits have been done.
The pits have been done,
No,
yes.
okay, the-
Thursday and Friday, they
So
did the
same
16
ones,
test
it just
pits.
hasn't been done yet, okay, gotcha.
Yes, correct,
And I think that was the drilling contractor that couldn't get to them until December.
until December, correct,
Okay.
yes.
That makes sense.
But the soil sample test pits were completed on Friday with Novus on site and our guys.
Fantastic. That's because Nate's awesome.
That's because Nate's awesome.
He is.
And I will say, you know, he's not on right now, but you know, Nate did say that there were spots that were 20 feet plus. There were other spots that fell in on each other that had no, you know, solidified,
Compaction.
yeah, no compaction at all. So it's definitely a broad spectrum of what you're getting down there.
Awesome.
Well, and in talking to Ryan, who was digging them, because he wanted to let me know his concerns too, he did say the majority of it. Happens to be right behind the dumpsters, so a lot of that may have been. Before we started regulating the dumpsters behind Price Chopper. A little more carefully, some of it is just household trash that has been dragged into that corner. So he did say it's not all
So
of it.
that's the case, that if that's a lot of it, then that's not gonna be very deep. I mean, if it's just dumpster trash that the bears have been getting into and dragging it around.
But I think unfortunately it got dragged onto on top of what's
Oh,
buried there,
okay.
so that's why that
Yeah.
area, that was his.
It's a mixed use.
Yeah.
site.
Yay,
You can't blame the bears for all of it.
People and animals.
yeah, darn it, like people who are sitting on this.
So if these additional finding or. If we didn't need to do these wells. What would have been the next step? Right, like we would have dug those test pits on Thursday and Friday, and those findings would be with Novus right now,
Mhm.
and we'd still be crossing our fingers, or
We'd still be waiting for a mitigation plan with a price attached to it.
It'd be DES reviewing it.
Right,
and
right.
coming up.
I mean, the
Right.
best case scenario is Ray comes back to us early January and says. It's gonna be $3,000 on the lower end, even if it's 30 or 80, it's still not 3 million. And that could be doable with the grant money and get it done in the spring and have it done. And start construction on the skate park. That's the best case scenario.
so
Worst case scenario is that
We gotta go to town money.
they don't get back to us in January and it's not till February and they come back and say it's gonna be 3 million. That's the worst case scenario.
So the real, I guess, problems out there are, one is the extra 2 months of time that are required to. Find out the results of these,
Right.
of these wells. And then. This could require. More remediation than. Initially intended or forecast.
Correct. But that's not gonna happen.
Oh,
But it's
I
still
get-
positive.
I'm a little bit encouraged that they're moving ahead with discussions with AOT. I think that's gonna be the slowdown.
Better?
Should be.
Paul, can you hear us?
I just barely got you back now.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure you can hear us, because
Okay.
it dropped off and then dropped off again for some reason.
Yeah, it's pretty windy outside.
Okay,
I get you now.
thank you. I mean, I see where you're going. Could we get the skate park area built? You know, and maybe a flat graded spot for, 10 cars on dirt.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and have your grand opening.
Yes, if
let's-
at all possible, we could do that.
Let's. When we meet in January and we look at the schedule, let's present that then. As an option.
I can even ask Ray that,
I mean, if
in
it's
the
something
next
that's-
couple weeks.
Yeah, certainly
yeah.
prepare him to,
Right.
be ready to answer that in the coming weeks.
If it's something, yeah, that's possible and a viable solution, I mean, we would not be opposed to it.
I believe the cadmium,
But I think the skate park is gonna require the AOT. And I think the AOT, like you said, is gonna be the holdup. I think that might be the triggering point. I don't know definitively. but
right,
The skate park might require the AOT and the AOT might be our issue. But I can find that out from Ray.
okay. I believe the cadmium,
Yeah.
the one positive well with the cadmium was not in this parking lot area.
Right.
It was between, say, the skate park and the incinerator. Is that correct?
That was my memory as well.
Which would mean if you put the skate park here to get, I guess you could come in from the backside to actually do any mitigation or whatever in that area, but I think there'd be some risk that, what we don't want to do is build a skate park and then have to go dig right up against
Yeah,
it to-
exactly, yeah.
to put in drains. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
But also, could we be constructing it at the same time? Like, we build a flat parking area so we could start that and then continue working.
well, and also how much space is allocated for that skate park within that design right now? I mean, when we were initially talking, we were talking about an acre of land dedicated to skate park. I mean, it's gonna be 5,000 square feet, which is, substantially smaller,
Right.
so.
way smaller, yeah.
Right, so where does that actually fit within the setup there?
Sure.
So all of a sudden you've got a lot more room to play with. And there's,
You know what I'm wondering is if the skate park would 5,000 square feet doesn't trigger AOT. I wonder if we could do that as a separate project.
Ooh,
So that it's counting as a big part of our match for
For the grant.
just so that our
Right.
timelines are kind of similar, but as long as it happens sometime in that same cycle, it counts as our match for all of our match for the grant.
All right, well, let's let Ray move forward with the discussions with DES. And then keep in mind, can we proceed with the skate park maybe on a different timeline,
Right.
an accelerated timeline? And does that even need an AOT if we separate that out and say, well, this is a little project that we're gonna do in square feet? Let's keep those options open.
OJ,
Go ahead, Paul.
is there a point in time at which the Board of Selectmen will look at this project in its entirety and say that it's not cost effective, or that that the site just really isn't the appropriate site? And the only reason I ask that is because when we originally the committee met to discuss this whole project down there, the finding was that there was not contamination down there, and that's the way it was proceeded to go forward. Now it appears with the contamination issue that's there, it's costing, the town is currently paying engineering, so you're incurring costs for engineering. You don't know whether the brownfield is, I mean, at what point in time do you say, is it the right place for the right project? I mean, the funding is still there, to do something. There were other avenues looked at prior, I think maybe the Cank Rec area was one of them. I'm not sure. But there were some other alternatives out there, and I'm just wondering if, you're not just, you're spending a lot of money on something that could be spent making some positive progress somewhere else. And I guess that's my question.
I mean, my thought on that is that in order for that decision to be made, the engineering needs to continue so that we have an informed decision, knowing, does it cost $3,000 or does it cost $3 million? And then
Right.
at that point, this board can make whatever decision they want, but it's really gonna be up to the voters. So, we can be making a recommendation, but it's gonna be the voters who decide.
So what you're saying is that you will put the question to the voters as to whether or not funding is, how the funding goes for that?
If additional funding is required, it would need to be appropriated by the town meeting.
Right, and so for like the engineering and stuff that's going on currently, is that within budget? How's that being paid for currently?
Within budget, with the amount that was appropriated for the matching part of the grant.
Right.
So it's being paid by a grant?
No, it was
The
funds that
match.
were appropriated 2019, maybe?
Can I ask,
It's 2018,
But it's our match.
Right,
The town's
It's the town's
$200,000.
portion
of the
of
match on the
matching
grant.
funds needed to
received the LWC.
receive the matching funds grant.
can I ask how much money has been spent in engineering to date for this project to do? Do you have a total on that?
Do you have that account?
I know to date, we spent 115,000 in total, but that doesn't just include engineering, it includes everything to this
SE
state.
group and-
on-
What's, Karina, when you say everything, is it, I don't know what everything is, I mean,
Tara's got it in.
I guess I'm just asking the question about the engineering. Is there a way to pull the engineering out of that and say how much of it is engineering? And I mean, is there a way to sectionalize that or itemize that and say, this is for engineering and this was for, because it sounds like the town's been doing a lot of, Nate's been doing test pits and stuff, so I'm not sure what else there is. I guess I'm just asking the question of where the money's being spent and how much is for engineering and what are the other hard costs?
Tara's got it.
I don't have the breakdown for how much was specifically spent, but I also know a big part went to SE Landscape Architect, who did the plans for us. Some went to Calix Environmental. Some went to Nobis, which you know about, Powell Asset Mapping. But I can break down, like, the way it's broken down in here is, planning, consulting and permits right now is spent to date 37,234. And then architecture and engineering are combined in here for 81.
So it's been $81,000 spent for architects and engineering. So there's no, the architects are the Novus, is Novus part of the architectural?
No, SE
SE
group.
SE Group, SE
They're
Landscape.
the ones that designed it to begin with,
Yeah.
correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, it just seems like, I mean, like I said, I would rather see the money going towards something that's could happen versus just, we get the town gets somewhere and says, well, you know what? We're throwing a lot of money into something and maybe it's time to look somewhere else and then it's too late. We've already spent a lot of money trying to do something that may not be the right place for it. And that was brought up truly, if you look back in all the minutes of the committees, during the original start of this process, we didn't want to spend a lot of money trying to mitigate all of that. We'd rather make sure that it went positive towards something that could happen. And I could have sworn, and I could be wrong, but I thought that, the concept of the contamination was brought up and it didn't appear that that was going to be an issue. And then all of a sudden now, down the road, here we are with a big contamination issue, I guess. And if the brownfield money comes, and it's probably not too bad, but I'd just like to see the board look at all of the factors before they just say, Tammy, you said we got to get it done, and I'm not sure that's the right way to look at it. I think we got to get it done the way we can put the best taxpayer money to use. I mean, it may not be down there. Maybe we got to step back and look at somewhere else, but I mean, it seems like there's a lot of unknowns that could be very costly in this.
Well,
Thank
we're
you.
gonna continue to research it until January when we get an answer, and we'll make a new decision at that point. If we think that there should be another path taken, but we'll have more facts and figures, dollar amounts to know at that point.
All right. Thank you for listening to me.
Thanks. Anything else? All right,
Thank you.
see you all in January. For the good news.
Give me 1 second, please.
You want to take 5 minutes?
No, I just need 2 seconds. Can you make copies and then we can give one to them and then put the other in my box, just for that? Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you.
Sarah, before you leave. Is it gonna be pickleball?
Yeah. You're so funny. I honestly budget, I was like, what, I'm not prepared for that.
Where are you doing it?
Pickleball will be, I got the flyer approved today. We haven't yet heard back from the school for previews, but set it up with Deb O'Connor and Aaron Laux, and Aaron is going to teach beginner skills. So we're gonna start it for 3 Sundays, not including Christmas, in December. So don't quote me on this, but I believe it's like the 3rd, 10th and 17th or something like
Okay,
that.
okay, but in just,
So the Sundays in December from 6 to 8 p.m. in the high school gym. And it will be all equipment provided. If people have their own and want to bring it, that's fine, but we're gonna start with those 3. and see
4, 11,
how it
18.
goes.
4, 11, 18
okay, I didn't know if you were
Sundays.
Perfect.
using the like basketball. court.
We've gone around about that. We actually ordered like semi-portable nets, because we ordered temporary nets this summer, and actually our adventure camp kids loved it and kept doing it. So we ordered some more permanent ones that are on like a locking wheelbase that you can just wheel out and start, and looked into even have tape to make that work. And then they were like, well, we want to continue to do it all winter long. We don't want it outdoors. So it was like, okay, let's pivot. And at the same time, Deb was trying to get, they had done a staff day at Linwood and everybody loved it so much. So they were trying to get it more for like the younger adults as well as the older adults. So we were like, this is great. They figured out where they can set up 4 courts at the same time, so they can be
Fantastic.
all, and they have all the equipment. So
How much fun is that?
yeah,
Cool,
yeah.
thank you.
So it's exciting. Yeah.
Good answer.
Did not expect that to be the question. That's good.
Do you want to have that question?
I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, let's take 2 minutes, then we'll do the comment report. Yeah.
That tricky with my quiet.
Roger, what happens to all that ash?
After all that ash.
What happens to it when it's in the
You-
ground? Does it disintegrate
Oh,
as
yeah.
far as moisture comes
I
down and
used to
then,
come up here from Bow to get it, just to feel the dam. Anybody got a dam, they got a leak in it,
yeah?
very fine, go in, travel anyway.
Mhm.
And it's no good around steel or anything, because it eats up. It makes it acid, you get water.
But I mean, when it's in the ground now, will it be there a million years
Yeah,
from now?
yeah.
Oh, it will. It will.
Any place you dig in town, you'll find, it. Any driveway you dig up.
Yeah. Okay, so it's not something that dissipates with
No,
moisture
no.
or over time or.
You can dig it up, make sandblast and sand with it.
Hey, what, Jim?
You can dig it up, make sandblast and sand with it,
Is that right? Yeah.
because that's what they use.
Oh, no kidding. I didn't realize
That's
that.
why, that plant.
Yeah.
And the hydro plant in Ball,
Oh, no kidding.
right now, I can't get any. That's been made from coal that's already burnt. Which isn't as dusty.
Yeah.
Sandblast and sand I get now is crushed.
You need some?
Or it's been burnt.
Do you need some
We'll let you
sandblasting?
go dig.
So do you need some sandblasting sand?
They used to haul it down to make sense.
It has to be crushed up.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, stuff that the only stuff I get now is called, hasn't been burned.
And what do you have to grind it?
No, you can buy it all in bags,
Oh, you can.
but when you get done at the end of the day, you look like a coal miner. I came home tonight. Black,
Yeah.
from head to foot. But if it has been burned before. Like the cinders.
Yeah.
That blackness on. And it's not as bad for your lungs as
As, yeah.
fresh ground coal.
All right,
All right.
town manager's report.
Here we go. So this past week, we set the tax rate for 2022 at $10.55. It came in a penny more than last year, which we think is great news. The majority of the reduction in the state education tax was significant in keeping our tax rate flat. In an effort to eliminate the volatility of the tax rate, we decided to hold off on spending any fund balance towards the tax rate with the anticipation that that reduction in the state education tax will return next year.
Right.
And then we'll be 40 cents higher.
Right.
So, in an effort to, kind of, offset the tax rate, not in the traditional way or how Lincoln has historically done it with offsetting the tax rate. My suggestion would be that when we get a little bit further along in the budget, we look at ways to put some of that fund balance towards warrant articles, whether it's buying a cruiser or offsetting some of the capital reserves. So we can use that fund balance in essence to reduce the tax rate, just not at tax rate setting.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So that's the plan, I think, and once we get a little bit further down with the budget season, I'll maybe make some suggestions, proposals in areas at which we could do so. We do know that there'll potentially be an increase in the overall operating budget just due to, inflation. So if we could offset that operating budget or some of the special warrant articles with the fund balance that we would have traditionally used, I think it's going to be a good move. So.
What was
Sounds
the reason why the state education tax went down substantially?
They got federal funding and it
For
was
the
part of,
recovery.
for the
Was it
recovery,
ARPA
yeah.
or
Yeah.
ARPA funds?
And it was the state budget, they made like a one-time, just like the municipalities were getting these one-time extra highway block grant, one-time, all those things. It was something for the schools.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
we received a new agreement for our regional prosecutor. I reviewed the agreement from years past. Obviously, I was involved on the other end of things when I was in Campton, and there are no significant changes. The only real change was that Lincoln's share has increased by $2,000, but I think overall, we've fared well. I think
Yeah.
they're keeping the cost down.
What's our total share?
It is 9,500 a quarter, if I'm not mistaken. So,
38,000.
38,000, exactly, yeah. Which I think last year was 36 and now we're at
Gotcha.
38, so I think, with the way the world is right now, it's pretty fair, so. The state has to sign off on that, the charitable trust division, they review all the intergovernmental agreements, has to sign off on it, so we haven't gotten the final nod from them yet. But once we do, I'll bring it to the board for signatures. I got a notice from NHMA regarding their purging of their legal files. Anything that's older than 2015, they are requesting, they're, I guess, asking the towns whether or not we want to have copies of those records. Obviously, that was quite some time ago, so I'm getting input from the board on whether or not you think we should retain those files. If we used NHMA, their legal services a lot back then. Do you think it's more generic questions? That's not really, I imagine anything that warranted real legal advice that wasn't just kind of statutorial questions probably went through our general counsel.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I was thinking is the Chenard case was active back as far as 2012. But I can't imagine that we used NHMA because we had retained Peter Malia.
Right.
I don't see any reason.
I could reach out and ask to like what extent the records are, like how many records do they have? Do they have bankers boxes or is it like a
Digital
manila
file,
folder? Right,
right.
exactly.
It's digital, but
Yeah,
like I said, if we got legal advice specific to that case, it was gonna come from Peter
Peter
Malia.
Malia, right.
I mean, they can't even do that kind of stuff. They can offer general.
Right. Right, they, yes, if a question gets too involved, they usually direct you to your own legal counsel. They'll give statutorial, like I said, RSA questions, how do you interpret this RSA,
Right.
how is it read?
Right.
Those
Yeah.
questions, they usually offer more advice.
Yeah, I don't see any reason to.
Me neither.
Okay,
No, let's see what they've got and let the town manager make a decision.
You wanna see what they got?
yeah, I don't mind reaching out and just saying, you know, to what extent is it? Is it bankers boxes or is it, you
Because
know, a
as you know,
PDF?
we've been getting, right to know requests recently. And so you wouldn't want to say that we talked something, then end up in court again.
No, but anything would most likely be
Right.
confidential because it would be attorney.
Right, that's not subject
Yeah.
to. Anyway, right,
I'll look into it and if I don't think it's worthwhile, then I'll just
Okay.
let it go. Okay,
Thank you.
no worries. We also received notification from the New Hampshire Department of Business and Economic Affairs that our economic revitalization zone, which is the industrial park and the Route 3 corridor, is expiring. I guess it expires once every 5 years. They need to renew it. We briefly talked about this district at the workforce housing meeting this past week. And I think it would be beneficial for the town to continue that designation. It only makes us more attractive and it only makes Route 3 and the industrial park more attractive for a developer or an investor to come in and do something with that area of town. It's a simple application. Pretty much just saying that that area is still underutilized and like I said, I think it would be beneficial for us in the future to renew it for another 5 years.
I'll make that in the form of a motion.
I'll second it.
any discussion?
Does it put any restrictions or anything on it? Or is it just more enhancements?
It's enhancements. It's essentially the state will, it comes, the incentive comes as a tax credit to
Okay.
the developer or the investor who brings
Gotcha.
You
Oh,
know.
I know what, okay.
life to that area. It really, town has zero control over it. The state,
Yeah.
regulates that program, but it just makes it more attractive.
Right, it's really just a tax break.
Yeah.
But,
And it
but,
ties into the opportunity zone.
Yeah.
yeah, but it doesn't, I mean, they still have to abide by our zoning.
Absolutely.
And all of that stuff.
Right.
All right, we have a motion in a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. Update on 41 Church Street. We were notified today from DES that they have approval to remediate. They have come up with a plan. The asbestos contamination was limited to one area of the building, which is the flooring in one of the bedrooms, which is a good sign that it wasn't in
No,
the.
they got approval to remediate, you mean the owner of the property?
The owner of the property, they had to hire a certified, a New Hampshire certified
Yeah.
company to come in and do so, and they have approved their plan. Remediation was supposed to begin today. They hope that once the remediation is done, which should be just a day or so of getting that flooring up, then they can move forward with demolition. So
Fantastic.
we're hoping that by the end of this week, that property will look slightly different.
Good.
So it says here that utility has to be disconnected.
Yeah, the utilities have to be disconnected, so right now, we went to shut off the water last week and the water curb stop is underneath one of the piles of debris on the side of the road, so we notified the owner that that needed to be removed. They informed us that they were gonna come up this week and move everything into the dumpster, I guess, but you're supposed to be dropping off the dumpster. The electricity has been shut off, we did get that notified from the co-op, they did give us confirmation of that. There was an issue with the propane tank and the owner of the propane tank. So they are having to hire a certified gas fitter to come out and disconnect the tank while they resolve the issue with the propane provider. But we felt like that was a fair solution to not halt the process, that as long as we had a certified gas fitter go out and disconnect and make confirmation that it was disconnected, and they could move forward, so. The only thing that may be left on that property is a propane tank, but that will be for the owner to have to figure out.
Have we learned what the next phase or plan is after it's demoed and debris is removed?
We've been told that they plan to replace it with a single family home.
Okay.
So. But we have not seen any permit to that effect. Right now, we're just dealing with the demolition and the
Right.
cleanup. The Pines detention ponds, Ray Corber has confirmed that the design concept that the Horizons has submitted, the proposed revisions to the detention ponds, is in compliance with the stormwater management. So he has given them the green light to get the developer in to make those modifications. Ray has worked with the developer and Horizons about what is expected and what the next steps are, and to ensure that we are receiving the certification that is needed to ensure that it is in compliance and that it continues to be in compliance throughout the construction. So that is moving forward. We should see some movement on that, hopefully completion of the proposed, revisions to the pond within the next few weeks here.
What competition are they gonna be in?
Say that again?
What competition are they gonna be in?
I don't know.
Was
Did I say
it
competition?
word?
Oh, completion.
I didn't say, I didn't get
No,
anything.
yeah.
I was gonna say they're
Thank you.
pretty competing.
Thank
I've been told that they already have the contractor lined up, that they were just waiting for essentially Ray Corber to ensure that it was in compliance, and they should be moving forward with those additional things that need to be done. Dropbox folders. So I was asked to create Dropbox folders for the planning board and the zoning board so they can share documents electronically. I didn't know if the selectmen were also interested in having a Dropbox folder for us to share documents, whatever it may be, to have a centralized location where we all can find things.
Hit one button.
I mean, would it be useful? If we're not going to utilize it, then there's really no point in doing it, but I think it would be not a bad idea to have a centralized location for us to share documents.
I mean, I think I would be in favor of that. For some of the project stuff, like Riverfront Park.
Having a
Yes.
folder with Riverfront. Yeah.
Because I got all my stuff from last time,
Mhm.
to talk about this tonight.
Sure.
If that were just in Dropbox,
Then all you need your computer.
huh?
Now you need to bring is your computer.
Your
You can
computer,
put that,
yeah.
right.
Well, and it also gives you the ability to be at home and kind of look at the documents before you get here, or if you have a
Right.
question that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea.
I do,
But I did.
Okay. That's easy enough. I'll
You
get
know,
that set up
and-
this week.
come budget season.
Yeah.
I mean, that would even be good for the budget committee.
Mhm. They use Google Drive,
Oh, they do?
the budget committee does, yeah, and they, that's where they keep all their agendas and their minutes. I don't,
What about their spreadsheets? Do they reprint?
we're printing those out, as far as I can remember from last year. No, I actually think they upload them electronically, right? Tammy? No?
Now we get paper copies every time it's changed.
Okay, well, it's something in the future that I think, like I said, it's just easier, if we all have access to it at our fingertips, it's just easier.
Yep.
Okay. I'd like to discuss with the board about potentially moving to a bi-weekly meeting schedule. I know we've kind of briefly touched upon it in the past, but I think it worked well this summer with the bi-weekly meeting schedule, and with the upcoming budget season and the budget committees. It's a cumbersome task to have meetings 3 to 4 nights a week. So I've put together a proposed schedule. It's in your packet. You will see, if the board is agreeable to moving to a bi-weekly meeting schedule, that we will have conflicts in January. It seems as if it's the only month where the holidays conflict with Monday nights. we could potentially,
Also, November 28th, we have a public hearing scheduled.
I know, I noticed that after Jane said that, so I mean, we could move the meeting to the 28th or whatever, you know, whatever it may be. But I just wanted to gauge your temperature on it and, you know, discuss, potentially the January conflict.
Yeah, January, the 3rd and the 17th, the budget committee will be meeting, so we'd have to be prior to the budget committee meeting, correct?
That would be correct, yes, because I think those are scheduled, set in stone for the budget committee already.
Although the 17th, they don't meet, so it wouldn't matter.
Why don't they meet?
They only meet on the 18th with Woodstock, that's that one Wednesday. meeting.
Oh, that's the one that's, okay, so potentially that Tuesday, the 17th wouldn't be an issue then.
So it would only be the 3rd.
It would only be the 3rd,
Yeah.
correct?
What about budget hearings? Oh, those are Monday, never mind, February's, because those are gonna be in February, but we're on Mondays then, so never mind.
Yep.
I'm fine with it, I mean, we'll have to tweak a couple things like the 28th and.
Right, well, and that's not to say
Figure out
that
the
if
budget.
there is ever a meeting, if ever a meeting is warranted, we will have an off-schedule meeting.
No, sure.
You know, absolutely, if we need to sign something, if there's something pressing, if there's an emergency, if there's whatever need be, we'll probably have some off-cycle meetings.
Right,
But to kind of, I guess, propose a bi-weekly moving forward for 23, this is what
I'm
I've
fine with
put
that.
together.
Did the chief board discuss that?
The chief board, stop with my grammatical errors tonight.
All right, so we're gonna add in 28th of November.
The board,
Right. The board, yeah,
The
the
board.
board.
the board,
The board.
Was that on your report that it says there?
Yes.
yes.
That's what I would.
Listen, spell check was not my friend this year, okay?
Fine. Teacher.
All right, so we're adding in the 28th of November. December is the 5th and the 19th. January is the 3rd, and then you're saying that the 17th is not a budget committee.
Correct, the
meeting.
3rd would have to be early prior to the budget committee meeting, they meet at 5:30.
Mhm.
So we'd have to meet at 4 or 4:30,
4:30,
depending
Yeah,
on
4,
what the,
4:30, yeah,
depending on what the,
what we had, I guess, on the horizon, if it was gonna be a lengthier.
Right,
meeting or
right,
something,
right, right.
Yeah,
All right, and then not on the 17th, but we'll do it on the 18th.
no, we'll meet on the
no, we'll
17th,
be on the 17th, that's fine.
have a regular meeting on the 17th.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And we don't have to, it
We don't
doesn't have to be
in a
early,
rush,
right,
okay.
right, right.
All right, and then we're back to the 30th. All right, 2 in February. March.
Now, next month. I'm gonna assume that we're gonna have a budget to go through.
Yes, my plan is to get you all a initial draft of the budget for the December 5th meeting. I've met with all department heads other than public safety, and we are working with John to.
So will we
put
have it
everything together.
prior to that or at that meeting?
I think it would be the first meeting for discussion.
Okay, so we'd have it a few days before. that.
Yeah, I'd probably get you to the Friday before. or
Okay,
whatever.
so do we want to meet at 4:30 for an hour work session on the budget? That's what we did last year. We met an hour before our regular scheduled 5:30 meeting, and then we had our, an hour budget session. And then had a regular meeting, and we did that a couple of times so that we could get the budget to the budget committee. Around Christmas is
Yeah.
usually the goal.
That's fine. with
And
me.
then if we need more than just that too, we'll pick one
I
up some.
like that idea, because
Okay,
we want to get it finalized in
Yeah.
the budget committee.
Okay, so work
on
session
the-
starting at 4?
the 5th, 4:30,
4:30.
4:30,
Okay.
the 5th and the 19th.
You'll send that.
And then if that's not enough, if we need more, we can do it that week before Christmas at some point. Even if it's in the morning or something, it's just a budget discussion. It can be recorded and posted, so.
That's easy enough.
Yeah.
Do you want to do it for the 5th and the 19th?
Yes,
Let's schedule it for the
Okay.
5th and the 19th.
Sure. And again, all these meetings will be at the regularly scheduled time.
All right, so our policy going forward is an every other week meeting will be planned. But on an as-needed basis, we will meet in between those. Possibly on a Monday night. Possibly if it's some quick thing and it needs to be during the day, we'll be flexible. So long as we post it. 24 hours in advance,
Yes,
at least,
yeah, similar to what we did this summer.
yeah.
And keep recording them and posting them so that everybody knows what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think it would be nice to get this proposed schedule on the website, so everyone knows when the meetings are. Some months have 3 meetings because there's 5 weeks in it, and you know.
And sometimes we start at 4:30, but it will be just a work session.
That's just a
Still
budget work session, still open to the public, right?
Yep, no, I'm good with it. You good with it?
Okay,
Yeah,
great. Wonderful.
You're welcome.
Moving on, thank you. A couple upcoming meetings just to make you aware of. The North Country Council annual meeting is November 16th from 4 to 6 p.m. in Littleton. The Grafton County Regional Development Corps annual meeting is the following day, November 17th at 9 a.m. via Zoom. I'm going to be at NHMA's annual conference those 2 days, so I won't be able to be in attendance, but I wanted to make the board aware of them, and if you wanted me to RSVP or sign you up, just please let me know.
Does the town of Lincoln need someone to attend both of those?
No, the Grafton County Regional Development Corp allows us to do a proxy vote where we just essentially say that we vote with the majority of the development committee. I imagine that if there's no objection to that, we could, move forward with the proxy vote for the Regional Development Corp. North Country Council, I mean, would it be beneficial for their annual meeting to maybe have someone, attend? I don't think it's gonna hurt us, but I don't think it's imperative that someone's there. I also think that they may offer a Zoom option. So if that's the case, it might be easier to attend that way.
I'd like to maybe attend, as a person, just to learn.
Sure.
Whether in person or Zoom.
Okay.
If you find out there is a Zoom link, or I'll look at my schedule if I'm available, maybe travel up there.
I have a school board meeting that night, so.
is that something that would be of interest for Carol to also?
I think Carol already has it on her radar,
Okay.
but I will definitely touch base with her because she's actually one of our point people for North Country Council.
Right,
Yeah.
that's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
Will she be at the NHMA?
she will not be. No.
Okay.
No.
Because the state planning conference is coming up. Next week? Week after?
I don't know what the exact date is, but yeah, it's usually in mid-November, right?
Yeah. So anyway,
Okay. I can touch base with her and,
if she's, I mean.
Yeah.
I think it's great if you'd go.
right. Well, the more the merrier. I
I
don't think
will-
they're limited to one per community.
I will plan on the Grafton County Economic Development.
I'll send you that link then.
All right, send me that link, so I'll do it by Zoom.
Okay.
Put that in my calendar right now. What day was that?
The 17th at 9, yeah. Great. I have a couple things that's not on my report that I figured I'd like to bring to the board. So last week, Scott McKinley was officially promoted to our deputy chief, so that position is no longer vacant. We are happy to have Scott back on board full time. And congratulations to Scott.
That is awesome.
It is
It is.
fantastic news, yeah.
Yes,
It was nice his whole family was here.
Great to
swearing him in,
yes.
yeah.
I think it's, I think the PD is excited to have him back on board full time. And, I think he's already starting to make changes, and Chad and I have discussed, kind of the direction of where the PD is going. And I think it's going to be good overall.
Yeah, agreed.
I briefly touched upon this when we were talking about Riverfront Park, and this is more just an FYI and to kind of let your minds marinate in the idea that the Northern Borders Regional Commission will have their open applicants for their funding starting in February. They said what, late February? I think that's what they said. Some project ideas that we can maybe start to consider is Riverfront Park, the police fire, the new police fire building. We talked about it for workforce housing, where I don't think the municipality would really be interested in getting a grant for that, but if some of the nonprofits in town wanted to do so, they could do so themselves. And then the water main assessment on Route 3, which we should have some cost estimates for that from Sam relatively soon.
I was gonna say, would we have enough information on either Riverfront Park or the police fire building to apply for that?
I think, I personally think we would have enough for both,
Okay.
because I think we are in the, I don't want to say final design phases, but the final, I guess, preliminary design
Sure.
phases for the new police fire building. The building committee is meeting next week. So we can show them kind of what they've produced and the options. They're kind of doing the interior now. They've done all their site work and now they're doing the interior. I think that would get us enough to get some funding for the building. Same with Riverfront Park. You guys are obviously many years in the making. I know that we don't have definitives of what that cost estimate is gonna look like, but we have a plan, we have a preliminary design. It's kind of just working with the kinks at the moment. So I do think we would have enough for both, and even maybe the water main assessment. I mean, that could be a little premature, but I don't think, I wouldn't say that they're absolute no's.
I don't know what their criteria is, but
I
it
mean-
seems like the water main, it isn't a new, is not improving the town. It's not an expansion.
Right,
It's just fixing something that's
maintenance.
decades old.
it's maintenance, right?
Right.
Yeah, 80 years old, whatever. The other two are new
New, right.
improvement, expansion type projects. Adding new benefits to the community. I think those would be the ones to shoot for.
Well, like I said, it's more food for thought right now as we
Okay.
get a little further along in the process and we get some maybe cost figures for everything, because as part of the police and fire, we'll also get cost figures for what that building is gonna be. So then we'll get cost figures for Riverfront Park, cost figures for the new police and fire building, and kind of, I guess, weigh which direction we want to lean,
On both.
or both.
I want it all.
We might not be awarded both, but you know, and we also have to take into consideration that we were awarded $1 million in 2019. So, you know, it's not like this is the first time we'd be applying for a project.
Right.
Not that I think it would hurt us, but you know, I don't know if the town of Lincoln can get all the awards.
Why not?
It wouldn't hurt to
Apply.
make the application.
No, absolutely. And then the only other thing I had was election schedule tomorrow. Obviously, it's the midterm elections tomorrow. 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Yep, technically, we're supposed to have
I'll be here.
okay.
I'll be here all day.
I'll stop it.
Okay. I mean, Randy has to be here all day, so I have to be here. I have to be here at 7:30. No, he has to be here at 7:30.
So you'll be here in second.
I'll be here shortly after 8. I have to drop the baby off at 8.
Yeah, I'll be here around 8 too. Not that I'm allowed to help, but I'll be here. So
I'll be here.
okay. And that's really all I have for an update right now.
Super, thank you.
No worries.
The other thing I wanted to mention was winter parking ban is in effect. Even though it was 70 degrees out today, and yesterday, there was a winter parking ban in effect. And when people still park on the road when they're not supposed to, my phone rings at 2 a.m. So please don't park on the roads after, what is it? 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. or something like that.
I
Anymore.
promise I won't call you anymore at 2 a.m.
Okay, thank you. Until April 15th, I think it is.
April, I don't know.
I
I
think
don't
it's
have,
the
I don't
15th.
have the flyer right in
I
front
don't
of
have
me.
it yet.
Is it in the green? It was
Oh, is that
somewhere.
what it was? No, it's not.
It was somewhere. Is it in there, maybe? I bet it is. Knowing Jamie, it's in there.
Yep.
She's that good.
April 15th, 11 p.m. to 6 a.m.
11 p.m. to 6 a.m. Stay off the streets. Don't park on the streets, please.
The town offices will be closed on Friday, November 11th.
Yes, for Veterans Day, sorry. I
Veterans
forgot
Day.
about that.
Oh, that's right. Thursday is the Veterans Day Assembly at school at 9 in the morning. It's awesome. The kids get to walk their relatives down. Is Dawson gonna walk you in? That's awesome. I love it, yeah. And then there's no school on Friday.
Right.
You're really fun for the day, I think.
Right, we have a. I thought we looked at their auditing contract.
So we were previously on a 1-year contract with Vashon Fouquet. They would give us a new contract every year with a estimated cost for that year's financial reports. I asked Jonna to look into doing a multi-year term with them to see if maybe we could try to keep the cost down, and that's what they came back with their proposal. I think $1,000 a year, or approximately $1,000 a year, especially with the amount of additional funding requirements with our grants and whatnot, is a fair price, and it locks us in for 3 years. So if the board is agreeable to that, we would like to continue to move forward with Vashon Fouquet for the next 3 years.
Yes, my colleagues, have you been satisfied over the years with this company? And last year you were satisfied?
Yeah, and we actually use them in Campton as well. I find them to be extremely thorough. They're very easy to work with. They give us suggestions for change each year. I think they're a great firm, so.
Yeah, and we had some good suggestions 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It was before you were here, but I just remember when Butch was here, it was like, there was some things that we should change. There were minor things. It wasn't like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
major stuff, but and I read their report every year, front to back.
I'll make a
Yeah.
motion to
Right.
approve.
Well, and just with the cost of employees and the cost of
Yeah.
travel and, with the unforeseen future, I think last year was a couple $1,000 jump, so I think it's comparative and I think it's fair.
This is gonna be a $1,500 jump over the 2-year period.
Mhm.
So that's what, like an 8% increase over 2 years.
Mhm.
Cover the cost of gas.
And it's more the first, it's more the first
The first year,
step up
yeah,
than the second.
right,
Right. But, with, who knows what the inflation rate's gonna be, but.
Right.
I'm in favor of this. It's 19,500 for the first year. It goes up $1,000, so it's 20,500 on the second year. Then it goes up $500 and it's 21,000 on the third year. So, all right, you have a motion?
I did.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
while we're on contracts and just more of an FYI again too, we also put our heating fuel out. We didn't do a formal RFP, but we were no longer in contract with our current provider, so we asked them to give us revised rates. They obviously wouldn't lock us into a diesel or number 2 heating fuel. They just said it's too volatile, but they would lock us in for propane, which is the majority of our buildings and the majority of our heating expenses. And that came in under what our current contract was. So
What was the price?
I think $1.99.
Oh, wow.
So I think it's,
Can we resell it?
yeah, no kidding. So that's good news overall.
So you signed the contract.
So we signed that, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good price.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right, did you have anything else?
Yeah, that was it for me.
Motion.
All right, then, for public participation? Jim,
Just one question, the every other week, selectors meetings, are they all at 5:30 at night?
we're gonna schedule most of them at 5:30.
Except for those January.
Okay, there's 2 in January that we're gonna start an hour early,
Right, yeah.
so we can work on the budget.
No,
And-
there's 2 in December.
December,
Then we're
sorry.
gonna do an hour earlier, and there's 1 in January, the first and the third. Correct, they're all evening, yeah, no mornings, they're all evenings, yeah.
But I think my comment that might have thrown you up is if in between.
Right.
We need a meeting, it will typically be a brief meeting that we have one thing that needs.
Right.
A
A
signature.
signature,
vote
a
or
decision,
something.
a vote, and we might do that
Based
during
on
the day.
availability.
Right, right, Right.
but, you know, the
If we need
intent.
to approve the auditors and get a signature on the paper, we might do that at noon time on Wednesday because
Right.
it's.
Right.
We will do our best to record them, even if they're a 2-minute meeting and post it so that
Right,
everybody can know what's going on.
But the regularly scheduled bi-weekly meetings will be at 5:30.
Yeah.
Except
and the
for those
intent will
comments.
never to be to do something at, you know, noon time. To try to vote on something when
No.
people are here, because number one, everybody's gonna find out,
Right,
either through Zoom or
we
meeting
wouldn't like it,
minutes,
right,
and then we're gonna get. Feedback
no.
for it at the next meeting, we're just not gonna do that, so.
Except for water
First
meters.
following, yeah.
Maybe everyone's gonna. No, I'm just kidding, I'm just kidding. All right, Roger.
I got a couple of things.
Yep.
You know, a couple, 3 years ago, we talked about the numbers on the houses.
Yeah,
I still see a lot of houses, not the numbers on it. They're gonna have the cops go out and look at it. Never been, the street lights, there's gotta go check the street lights when they're out. There's gonna make a list of them. Then even, there's been one up on Pollard Road, it's been on for the last 2 years, it don't go off.
the one, you're right, the one across the street from me has been on for 2 years.
Yeah.
And that has, the co-op has been notified by me personally with photographs of their poll
Yeah,
numbers. And by the PD prior to my doing it as, you know, post that. So,
There's another one too, that, and I've done the same
and
thing.
there's one,
And I know Ron has gone around and he has documented a bunch that were off. Some of them were fixed. They were replaced with LEDs. But it's availability of the co-op.
there's one by my house, which is a dark area, and it comes on, then it goes off. That's been doing that for 2 years now.
okay, I
Now,
don't
can
know,
Fix that one by taking it right out. Just, pop it.
We didn't hear that.
I don't know if that one's been reported, but, if you get the,
I give them the poll number, I brought it down to Jane 3 weeks ago, 2 or 3
Okay.
weeks
Yeah.
ago.
then they've been reported.
Yeah,
Okay, then I have another one, there's a limb on a wire, I've been chasing this for 2 weeks. And nothing come up, so I went down today to see the PD, he called down there and said it's on a cable on a telephone line. Well, next thing I know, Spectrum comes in. And he wound up like a top. Where's this tree on the line? That's right over there. He said, that's the electrical line. I said, oh shit, I know that. Well, he said, my boss just called me, an emergency to come down here to get it off. Well, I said, why don't you call your boss up and take a picture of it? So he took a picture, he called his boss. I asked the cops to do the same thing today. Take a picture of it and send it down there, because somebody's gonna get hurt. Probably be me, because I'll be the one trying to take the limb off the line.
Well, let's not do that.
yeah, no.
Oh, whatever, and
Did we determine it's electric, not?
I know it's electric.
And it's, I mean, not to make excuses, the New Hampshire Electric Co-op is facing the same issues that every other employer in the world is facing
Yeah,
now.
but he come up the other day, because I followed the truck. The line truck is going up, so I followed it from School Street all the way up through, I'm behind him blinking my lights. He goes all the way up, he turns around, comes down, goes all the way down Main Street, I'm behind him blinking my light, honking the horn, then he goes down, gets on the interstate.
He went by my house,
Yeah, I mean,
my truck.
he had to know, because then when they called. Fire chief, I guess, said it was on a telephone line. There ain't no telephone line.
I
Well,
know your frustration, but again, we can only call them, it's their,
Yeah, we can't do it.
and like I said, the one across the street
I
from me has
think
been
they
2
are, they
years.
should be able to take a picture of that and send it down to them.
Of the limb,
Huh?
of the tree limb.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, they always crying about saving lights, they want you to buy all these fancy light bulbs and all this stuff here, but they don't give a shit about leaving their lights on 24/7.
They're not paying for
I guess you're right, it's wasteful.
Absolutely.
The only consolation is that we pay a flat rate, it's not metered.
But we pay a flat rate for the ones that are out too, that have been reported. and
That's
not
true, too.
fixed. That's even more frustrating.
Well, if the town's notified of either an outage or something like that, we will do our best to notify the
Yeah.
co-op. And I know Jane makes, attempts to do so pretty regularly when we get complaints, so.
Yeah.
So we'll.
Regular
continue to-
complaints.
Well, what are you gonna do about the house number in there? Every time the UPS guy comes, every time you get a new driver, he's looking at these crazy numbers, I mean, it seemed like the cops could ride around with a flashlight, they ain't got a number on the house. Go up and put a goddamn sticker on the door.
Is that something we can put in the tax bill?
Technically, nothing's supposed to go in the tax.
Isn't
bill
there a little
legally.
square we could put a message in though?
Oh, there is a square we could put the message
Do we
in.
have another message to go out this year?
Well, the tax bills are already
I
in
think they're
production,
actually-
yeah.
Oh.
But I mean, do we have a 911, an E911 ordinance in regards to numbering?
We did, because remember they changed a number of years ago, they actually changed numbers
Right.
on
Yes.
various streets of the town in compliance with that.
Yeah, it was a huge thing with the.
Yeah,
village.
I know that, most towns had to do it because of the
Yes.
whole E911
Yeah.
after,
Yeah,
if we have one. There's somewhat of our enforcement arm or our mechanism to kind of say, hey, you don't have a number on your house. But it requires us,
Right.
going around and seeing
I
who's
mean,
compliant.
it's,
and who's not.
that's a hard one too. The PD is still short staffed downstairs.
Correct.
So to make them do it is not fair right now. They're still down 3.
I don't disagree, and same with Public Works, I mean, we're
Right.
down 2, I mean,
Suggestion might be, let's put it on the town website, post a
Yeah.
notice that everybody coming, not everybody, people.
just a reminder. Right.
Even for tomorrow's election,
Yeah, can
Put
we
it on
have
the front
something we
door.
can,
or have somebody have a stack, just say, is your house number? If not, it's in your safety, in your best interest of safety and that of your family, to get it numbered. It's a requirement under.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely post it on the website and,
Put
do
it
what
on
we need to
tomorrow,
do,
maybe we have election tomorrow, so.
yeah. Start there.
Yeah,
anyway.
at least try to, communicate,
And I would communicate with Public Works and communicate with the police department and the fire department and.
that if they notice the house.
Yes, you don't go out looking, but if you notice that there's one there, jot it down, call it in, something. And let's start that way.
We could also maybe include it in our short-term rental kind of news blast, make sure your
Yeah.
house is numbered type scenario.
Yeah,
It's a way to, just get the news out there.
yeah. Facebook, it's not true if it's not on Facebook, so we don't put it there too.
That's a good way to,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can do
Somebody
something.
on Musk will put Twitter for us.
thank you.
anyone else? Paul?
Yeah, I have a couple things. As a taxpayer, I disagree with giving the fund balance back to capital improvement projects. I think it ought to go back to the taxpayers and then be requested as expenditures in the future. So in other words, if there's leftover money, it ought to go back to the taxpayers or to defer the tax rate. And then if you have requests for certain items, I think it ought to be brought up that year for the taxpayers to be able to vote on.
It will be, it legally has to be.
It has to be.
It has to be
Well-
voted at the meeting.
The other thing I had is that the drop boxes, the planning board did not vote to have the drop boxes done. Being on the planning board, I know that because I didn't vote for that. It was too much information. My computer gets bogged up with my business stuff. So when the town sends all the Dropbox information, it even makes it worse. Let's see, bi-weekly selectmen's meetings. I think it's gonna limit the amount of public input that you're gonna have. During the summertime, everybody goes on vacation. That's usually when you cut those meetings in half. So that, there's not that much public around. I mean, it's not that much going on, but I think during times of budget hearings and all the rest of that, I think it's gonna cause you a lot of confusion and there's gonna be a lot less public input available. And lastly, the deputy chief. He's gonna be full-time. Will he be working 40 hours a week?
Yes, that's full time. I think
That's
it's,
full-time. No, I'm just asking, because I know he's part of the retirement program and that, anything over 32 hours a week, it kind of gets him out of the retirement program. So I was just wondering if he's gonna be full-time, 40 hours a week.
you will be full time, 40 hours a week, 40 plus.
All right, he's a great guy. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, if there's nothing else, we have two legal issues to discuss, updates on any personnel issue?
And a personnel.
Personnel issue, okay. So I'll make a motion, we're going to non-public for two legal issues and one personnel issue. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you all for coming.